Welcome back to the COS Business Podcast. My name is Andrew Hasley, and I am the host of the show. Today, we have on Alexander David McMath. Can you tell us what you do?
And thank you so much for having me, Andrew.
Yes.
So as it stands, I'm the founder and principal consultant at McMath Solutions. It's a management consulting firm where we believe messages make markets. And to say a little more about that, it's the idea that if you're a technical or professional vendor, especially if you're facing into a large commercial enterprise or a government procurement process, you have to bring more than just your expertise. You have it, however, the people you face are basically wanting to force you to compete on price. And so the difference in offering best value has to do with clarity of purpose. I want people to be clear on who they are not, what they do, for whom, how, why. And that doesn't just apply to the marketing practice. It also applies to program improvement, talent acquisition and scaling, knowledge management, strategic communications, and future studies, because once you're able to think and communicate clearly, all sorts of opportunities open up to you. You unlock value from both your team as well as the customers you're facing.
Okay. It really helps you, solidifying that message really helps you move forward faster, clearly, and it also opens up the things that may come at you that align with what you do.
Exactly, and to get into those higher value spaces where you're actually being treated as a trusted advisor and a partner rather than a commodity.
And also, if you ever want to address the audience, that's your camera, that's my camera. So if you want to address the audience, just right there.
And thank you so much for watching.
Yes, all right, so we'll get into that, but first I'm going to read the advertisements. Today we have the advertisement and sponsor. The only sponsor for today's episode is my video production company, Vehement Visuals. We produce videos for businesses, help them clarify their messages on video and create video assets that can be used to automate certain processes. Say that you help them get their messages down, we can go in and create an automated tool that can really help, stand forever as an asset, a long-lasting asset, a video asset.
Right, evergreen.
Yes, exactly.
And, I'm definitely looking for a video partner because messaging is one thing. It does very well to have solid partners for the implementation of these things.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's Vehement Visuals. That's actually the only sponsor we have for today's episode, but I would like to promote the advertising space here at the beginning of every episode. If you'd like me to read to promote your business at the beginning of an episode, I can read a 15-second or a 30-second ad to do that, and you send that to me, and we'll read it on however many episodes you want me to read it on. And
I'll definitely keep that in mind. And It would probably be shorter than 15 seconds. Probably just brought to you by McMath Solutions, where messages make markets.
I like it. See, that's exactly how it would sound. All right, cool. So that's the sponsorships, the advertisements at the beginning for this episode. And I'm going to roll the intro music and we'll get started.
Let's do it.
This is a show where we have real conversations with entrepreneurs and business owners who are mostly in Colorado Springs doing things in the community of Colorado Springs. All right. So how's it going, man?
I'm doing quite well, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. I've been anticipating this episode. Our schedules kind of had a line.
Hey, we're both running around a bit, but really that's a good problem to have.
Yes, it really is. It really is. So your business, how long have you been doing this business?
So I actually started out in February. I filed my LLC on April 17th.
What a perfect time to start a business.
Things have gone better than they have any right to. I'm very blessed.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Okay. Sweet.
But the honest truth behind it is, and there are two parts. One is that people always need better thinking, provided you can show them a clear path to a better business outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And the other half of that, and to be frank, the dark side, is that I understand this because my own path in my career consisted of a lot of that gap for a long time. So I've known most of my adult life that I was somebody who enjoyed information products, which is an ugly term that won't sell anything. And so you already can see there's a certain amount of translation from private language into audience facing. And that's something I'm big on in my practice. But all that to say, even though I like to research, I write well, I think in systems, I solve problems. People consider me insightful or creative on occasion.
Okay.
However, without a good way of messaging my way into making a market for my skill set, people would hear me and they wouldn't be moved. Mm-hmm. And I would have a long time, both before and after my service in the Army, where it just wasn't happening in terms of my career. And that causes you to get down on yourself as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what ended up being the case, and I give my sincere thanks to the help I received at the Mount Carmel Veteran Service Center,
okay,
as well as Wounded Warrior Project, and I've been lucky to have a number of mentors standing by me over the years. With all that in mind, the work that had to be done was first to message to the most important audience, which is myself.
Yes.
And spring 2021, watch for book number 1 from Alexander David McMath, which will be called Messaging to Ourselves.
Nice. I like how you framed it as book number 1. That means you have a lot coming.
I'm very blessed. I've been to a place within myself where I wasn't even having ideas anymore. And if you're looking at me today, you're like, man, that must have really not been good.
No, yeah, it's never good.
And so I have that empathy and that allegiance towards my clientele because I know how hard this work can be to do for ourselves, both from the individual inside out through the organization to the customer. And so when I finally got a clear handle on what values and skills were important to me, then it was much easier to understand what value I was providing in a business context. Mm-hmm. And so that self-development served as a practicum for what I now do. Mm-hmm. And it gives me the utmost confidence that I'm able to, deliver it for pretty much anyone within my strike zone.
Okay. Yeah, like I like to say, if people ask me, what's a good testimonial, I like to say I'm my best testimonial.
Amen.
Yeah, because I've been able to help myself out, and by doing that and learning it and applying it to myself, I think I'm better at helping other people as well.
There's a lot of truth to that, just because if you're providing something, in the IT or software space, they call it eat your own dog food. Mm-hmm. You've also heard the phrase physician heal thyself. Mm-hmm. It really does apply, though. And so one of the ways I've been fortunate is that when I started the business, I had enough financial flexibility that I didn't immediately go chasing just any lead. And I spent a lot of time making sure that on the internal side, the things I thought about how to do business were being documented, were being prepared for refinement, and were being prepared to brought to scale. Mm-hmm. And so I found myself basically this month hitting scale rather abruptly.
Nice. Okay. Nice. That's good. That can be stressful sometimes if you scale too fast. Was it, or has it?
Stress is relative.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Stress, good stress, but I mean, sometimes it can be to your own detriment if you scale too fast.
Right. Well, insofar as I count talent acquisition and scale as one of my practice areas, this is, again, that physician heal thyself piece.
Yes. So that's something you actually are comfortable in. That's your zone right there.
Among others. And really, I see everything as systems design. For my money, communications is something that's meant to be treated as a design process, and decision systems, to include purchasing, to include management, are all modulated by information products. And so the person who's in charge of running a company, doing procurement, doing talent management, they can only go on the quality of the information that's presented to them. Mm-hmm. And that's filtered through what their own decision-making process has been. It's still a matter of speaking to them in a language that they're prepared to understand. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people get tripped up when they haven't separated that thinking into two pieces. If you were to read my notes, well, I don't recommend that. But when it's time to be before an audience, then I'm clear with myself as far as what I think will and will not resonate with them. Now, this goes for a business plan facing financing. It goes for a response to RFP. If you're in that sort of bid and procurement system, it goes for a job posting, an interview process, and an onboarding. It goes for the company handbook and other knowledge management products. And it goes for that sort of opportunity mining or future studies that we do when we're looking for something new.
Nice. It sounds like you're very systems orientated.
That is a strength and a weakness.
Yeah, for sure.
And the reason I say that is because there's such a thing, and this was part of the self-care and personal practice. I would say if we're not careful, it's possible to create more questions than answers. The place that I've had help, both from my mentors, from my early on clients, and from my team, is finding that critical path. Now, it's very good to create a lot of questions and divergent thinking. However, there's a time and a place for it, and sometimes it's time to think in minimum viable. And what I mean by that is, so I've been a perfectionist in my life. I'm sure we've all struggled with it. And so the way out of it is to stop yourself and say, what are those small interim steps that can get me the information I know to better pursue the outcome I want?
Okay. Focus on the outcome when asking the questions and make sure that you don't get lost in the sauce.
A little of that, and people think they have to have the entire solution on day one, and that's just not the case. You know, you take the classic example of writing a term paper, and if you take it as, well, I have to come up with 5,000 words about something I don't care about, then it's daunting. If you know that you have to quickly just get yourself familiar with the topic, create an outline, and then parcel out piece by piece, you at that level can pretty much just force yourself to write a couple sentences on each subheading that makes something resembling sense. And once it's down, you start editing, and next thing you know, you got a paper. Yeah,
you get really, like, it's a lot of the biggest battle for a lot of things is just getting started. That's like, there's like a barrier, a threshold, and then once you're in it, you're like, it starts flowing.
The resistance, you know. You're familiar with Stephen Pressfield's work?
I'm not, actually.
The guy who wrote, I believe it was Gates of Fire, which is the novelization of the Battle of Thermopylae, among some other novels, but apparently there was a point in this guy's life where he sold all his belongings, moved somewhere out in the Pacific Northwest, worked during the day as an itinerant day laborer picking apples, came home to a spare cabin in the woods with only a typewriter, and this is how he finally forced himself to write, to overcome the tyranny of the blank page.
Oh, wow.
Which, I mean, you don't have to do something so drastic.
Yeah, it seems a little extreme.
I mean, and now, I think his nonfiction writing about the creative process is more famous than the novels.
Oh, wow.
However, all that to say, whatever you have to do to reduce those barriers, which, I mean, you wouldn't catch me picking apples. However, just do what you can to set yourself up for success. And I'm a big believer that process is how we set ourselves up for success. On that note, I'd say that it's important, this is another one, this is why the book is called Messaging to Ourselves. When we tell ourselves a story by which we as the protagonist are able to go out and be before our audiences and be before ourselves and deliver what it is that we hold dear, that's a form of success. And so the two in messaging and to ourselves is actually going to be in parentheses, because then you omit it and you get messaging ourselves, which is what we all do in business, in our careers, provided we've done the work beforehand for self-development and interpersonal skills generally. And then once you have messaged to yourself, now you're prepared to message yourself to the world.
Cool. I like that. That's going to be a clip right there. Clip that.
Good.
I like that. Yeah. So with I had a question I was thinking about. What's with your business? What do you think you've done to help yourself grow? Why are you hitting this transformational month, I guess?
Well, without too much of the religious piece. We are in Colorado Springs, though.
Yeah.
I keep saying, I'm very blessed.
Yes.
So, bearing that in mind, obviously the pandemic hit, and I felt that wasn't a good time for that, which is a bit of an understatement.
Yeah.
And so, but
timing, yeah, it was bad. It's you know, you started your business less than a month before shutdowns happened.
right. And I was mad for a little while, but then it becomes a question of, well, what story am I going to tell about this time?
Mm-hmm.
And what I had to remember to do was to practice gratitude.
Yes.
And practice empathy for all the clients and stakeholders I was facing. And trust myself to look for, identify, and deliver new value.
Mm-hmm.
There are always opportunities, even in crisis. That's
Yes.
almost a cliche.
It's
And
even sometimes crises cause more opportunities, actually. Actually, I think that's usually how it goes.
well, they absolutely do. And you think of the major corporations in our history that were started during recessions or
Yes.
depressions.
Almost all of them, some of the biggest ones.
You know, people talk about a flight to quality during this sort of economic downturn. And that doesn't just apply to the financial markets. It applies to vendors and partners as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I'm big on gratitude, and I'm big on empathy, and I'm big on practice. And what needs to happen, you see the downturn coming, but you know that the clientele, such as it is, need you to walk alongside them as a trusted advisor and partner. And you don't just say it, you have to have something to say after you get done saying that. And this, again, requires you to carry the freight at a relatively large scope on thinking through that system. Or you can hire me.
Yeah, okay.
However, I will say that it's to the effect of finding a way to layer additional, really excessive, tremendous, delightful value onto the customer's core conception of what you provide. If you only give them the core, you're going to compete on price, have fun.
Yeah.
But they don't just have a product or service in mind, they have an outcome. And that's true even at this time, because they have their customers that they need to serve at a high level of value. And so it's getting yourself, like I said, from, of course it's annoying, through gratitude to empathy with a defined practice for developing an offer and delivering on it.
And so say someone comes to you and they ask you for your help. What do you do for them?
So that depends on the maturity of their business, the space they're in, what their risk tolerance is, what their goals are. You know, I like to be clear on purpose and values. You know, let's do things that are who you are. I like to be clear on scope and goals. And that generally gives people an idea of what needs to be done to align risk and incentives. I try not to be too concerned about the money piece for myself.
Yeah.
Because the best way to get my idea of money is to deliver my idea of value.
Yeah. I was just having a conversation about that yesterday.
It's an important one to have. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, being in small business, we see a lot of founders. And if it's not the sort of lack of knowledge around processes and cost versus price analysis that gets them away from just being busy in the business rather than working on the business, then it's also what you might call scope and sensitivity towards what it really takes to develop a authoritative and persuasive offer. And so it's like, well, I know how to make sausage better than all these other guys.
Yeah.
All right, what you need to do, though, is align. This is the word we talked about, liking.
Mm-hmm.
Align the processes of making sausage with selling sausage,
Mm-hmm.
along with what that customer key activity, well, I guess it would be eating sausage,
Yeah.
and outcome are. And so that's the way that I tend to approach.
So you take those three things, aligning the product, or say it again?
So basically, delivery to capture or business development to customer key activities and outcomes.
Okay. And so you dive into each one of those sections and figure out, like, you ask questions, I take it, of course.
I do. And what ends up happening is where there are gaps in terms of either those pieces individually or between them, and a lot of people suffer with not being able to develop a good marketing system or good sales because there's a disconnect between what's being promised in the sales process and what's possible to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Alternately, it goes the other way where people spend all the time talking in terms of features and, oh, this is so innovative.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but what does it do for me?
What problem does it solve?
Exactly. And you don't want to find yourself that has a solution looking for a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two places to look, and most people have trouble beginning with the end in mind.
You're saying you don't want to look for the problem?
No, I'm saying you don't want to have a solution looking for a problem. You want to build something that people actually need.
Okay, and define that just a little bit more so I'm more clear. You don't want to have a solution looking for a problem, but you want. Then how do you find that solution if you can't define the problem?
So it has everything to do with, and because I deal in business to business, or really business to enterprise / business to government,
Mm-hmm.
we're dealing with large customers. They're willing to spend, provided you have a clear reason that they'll spend with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of small businesses, there's a lot of expertise and technical knowledge concentrated within that organization.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. Expertise doesn't exactly change. Now, I pretty much look, walk, dress, speak the same way I have most of my adult life.
Mm-hmm.
Think largely the same way, maybe a little sharper, I don't know. What changes is the packaging of expertise. So when I was trying to slog myself through graduate school and get a job at a think tank, I was still smart, I guess. It just wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't clear with myself, and I wasn't in a space where I was communicating clearly with the people who controlled those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Pause. Decisions are made by people.
Yeah.
Okay. So then what I'm saying is that, actually, top level thread me real quick.
A what?
Remind me what I was saying.
We were talking about solutions and problems.
Okay. Yeah, and right. So cut this part.
We don't cut. We keep it in. We keep it fresh and rolling.
Oh dear. All right. So, there's a Japanese proverb, even monkeys fall out of trees.
Yeah.
All that to say, expertise doesn't change. Now, the way that it's packaged facing the client changes. The way that it's then taking that packaging, that offer, and informing delivery changes. Like, consider that you as a video production and editing professional, you would do something different for, let's say, short form YouTube content
Mm-hmm.
versus, an on-demand training course.
Mm-hmm.
Editing is editing.
Yeah.
However, different customers have different needs.
Mm-hmm.
And if you come to somebody who wants to build a training course speaking in the language of how do we drive engagement, or, what's the ideal length, or, how do we drive subscriptions? If you talk to them in YouTube terms,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be a disconnect. You're not likely to gain the business.
Yeah.
And so people try to be all things to all people, and it's a lack of trust in the definition of their own packaging, let's say, but really knowing that you can have confidence in the niche that you have on which you focus, and that will inform, like I was saying, that alignment between this is to whom, and therefore what and how make more sense, and they're informed, we hope, by why. So how does that hit for you?
I mean, I think it's making sense because, you know, I don't want to just be a video editor or a video producer. I want to go in and figure out what problems can we solve.
Well, you want to provide experiences through visual content.
Yeah. Experiences, build connections, automate processes.
Right.
That's where the real value is over the pretty video.
And putting yourself in position as an advisor and a provider of complete solutions to help these people get the outcomes they want. They may not even know they want them. And it's like, I need video. Okay, what do you need it for? And if you can get them to be clear about who they are and what video can do to present them, then you can show them things they would have never thought of. Almost as if you're a creative professional and they're not.
Almost as if, yeah.
Right? And so, you know, for instance, it's like once you start having clear internal values, then it's like, well, we can make a course, we can make Instagram content, we can make YouTube content.
Brand awareness or brand, brand connection. We
can even run something on a screen in the office.
Yeah.
All kinds of things. But
training videos.
It starts from clarity. And to be clear, when I say end-to-end solutions or a wide constellation of value, I do not mean all things to all people. People get a little confused. They get worried that they're not doing enough. They're not selling enough. But there's no unity because that first piece, which is why I say private and public language are different, start from the inside out, treat it as a system. All these things are ways in which an ounce of sweat during training saves an ounce of blood during fight.
I like that. That's a good saying. Let me hit that button real quick.
Sure. No problem. Has it been 30 minutes already?
27 minutes. And actually, I got to start wrapping up here soon.
Okay.
Is there anything that you'd like to promote on this episode today?
So I want people to know that even though we may have sounded a little abstract for the purpose of this, I've been able to build a good track record in terms of going to market, the part where we sell something and it makes money, for a number of IT clients. I'm working the operations improvement piece with a couple defense clients as well. And
nice.
I'm feeling very optimistic about the ways in which my approach can be adapted. And this, again, applies to everybody who's in business. Expertise doesn't change. Adaptations do. I feel very good about the generalist approach that I have and my ability to quickly provide value to almost any offer in vertical.
Okay. I actually just thought of a metaphor for what you were just saying. There's a microphone out there. It's been around since the 60s, but it's still one of the best microphones. With microphones on that kind of tech, microphones don't really evolve. They got good and they stay good. I mean, there's things that happen, but then it's like the adaptation, say this piece of equipment, this equipment has a compressor, it has a de-esser, it has all this extra stuff. That's where all that extra stuff comes in. And also, what the analogy is like a $400 mic that's been around since the 80s is still, the price doesn't depreciate. It's still $400. Like it stays, I mean, give inflation and all that other stuff. But what I'm getting at is the expertise. It's the how you use that microphone that really is the special part.
Excuse me. Exactly. You know, the best microphone on earth. But you know, if you sound like this, then exactly. This is not a pleasing audio.
That's cool. You can do a higher voice. I think you're the deepest voice that I've had on the show so far.
Hey, I'll mark the calendar for that one.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so that's cool. Aside from that, how can people reach you?
So I'm at McMathSolutions.com, and I'm on LinkedIn under my own name as well as the company. And please feel free to reach out and if you want to call, we like calls. You get to hear this voice.
Yes.
That number is going to be 719-357-7459.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. And this has been a really good conversation. I think you provided a lot of value, and I've realigned a purpose with this podcast. I realigned because it's still about the same as the original purpose. I did this just last week, actually. The goal is for every guest that comes on, you don't have to be in Colorado Springs or from Colorado Springs, but you do have to come to Colorado Springs to be on the podcast because we're downtown. But the goal or the alignment that I was saying that has got realigned is if you are outside of Colorado Springs, or even if you're in, when you come on this show, what value can you provide to the community of Colorado Springs? And I think you've provided some good value.
I appreciate that, Andrew. And, I am local. I live over right by Citadel Mall.
Nice.
And the reason that all these people are coming to Colorado Springs is because they see what a beautiful place it is and what great values we've established for our culture. It's still a small town. It's getting bigger, and I really appreciate that. And what that means is that we as a small business community, we need to continue to uphold who we are. And to wit, for my money, that is, in bigger cities, you can get away with BS. You start talking some of those new MBA words, and there are some new every year, and you can fool people.
A sucker is born every day.
However, and these people who arrive in New York or Boston, that their local village back wherever is missing their idiot.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
In Colorado Springs, though, you have to be able to walk the talk. There is what I would call a community of competence here by which people know how to bear with and trust each other. And so I think
the big military presence really helps build that.
Steadfast and loyal, 4th Infantry Division. I enjoyed my time.
Nice. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
All that
off.
to say, people deserve to have partners who know what they're doing, who are going to be trustworthy and empathetic and are going to aggressively deliver that value. And I feel that's me, and I'm looking for people who are in the same space because messages make markets, and with a good team, you can absolutely message your way into making a market for that group of talent that you have. So please come in, give me a shout.
All right, fantastic. Well, we'll wrap this up. This has been the COS Business Podcast today here with Alexander David McMath, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.